Welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. Here we'll talk to the leaders in technology, culture, business, and the arts. We'll cover politics, advocacy, motherhood, writing, mental health, and mostly we'll focus on hope. Join Kim B. Davis, author, playwright, radio personality, event consultant, professional speaker on the Kim B. Davis Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have Shanay Watson-Whittaker with us, and she is our political strategist, and we love to talk to Shanay because she breaks things down for us. However, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about race politics because we've had some big things happening in our country. Good evening, Shanay. How are you?
I am okay. How are you today?
I'm great. So
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. So let's get right to it. So, a couple weeks ago, we saw Cheryl Underwood and Sharon Osbourne on the talk get into this heated exchange about who is racist. And it seemed to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there was this issue of proximity. As if because this person is my friend, namely Pierce Morgan, that would indicate that Sharon Osbourne was racist. And what infuriated me, and I really want to delve into this because there's a few things that I saw, but what really infuriated me when I watched this is that Sharon Osbourne was saying, well, don't you dare cry because I'm the person that should be crying. And my thought was, well, what are you crying for? Because as we can all see it, you're attacking Cheryl Underwood for saying that she felt that Piers Morgan was racist. And before she could even get into why she thought he was racist, and of course, this comes on the heels of the Harry and Meghan Markle Oprah Winfrey interview, and we heard some very explosive, I guess, statements made where there was a question about the color of what the color of the baby's skin will be and different things. And a lot of people are upset, and I get it. However, outside of all of that, for Piers Morgan to continually go on, and as the brother on Good Morning Britain said, her name stays in your mouth.
Yeah.
But she cut you off. She had every right to, and she hasn't talked about you since then, but you continue to talk about her. And for Sharon Osbourne to then say, well, he's my friend. And does that mean because you're saying that he's racist, that I'm racist? So that tells me one of two things. Either you two have had a conversation or there's been a conversation around that topic as if to say, well, if I have a racist friend, does that make me racist? Does that make me have the same beliefs? And then the greater context that I want to go into, because the topic is tonight, why is it that Black women have to explain everything? Why do we have to remain composed and break things down? We can't show emotion. We can't be too masculine. We can't be too feminine, because either way puts us into a situation where we can be stereotyped.
Whew. You said a word. You said a word. I think what happened with Sharon Osbourne and with Miss Cheryl Underwood was like a microcosm of a Black woman's experience, not just in America, but all over the world, in the UK as well. And, for Miss Osbourne to tell Miss Underwood, I should be, you be quiet. I should be, crying. That's just another way she weaponized her white woman's tears. But let me take it back a bit. When after that came out, and then there was like press reports of her saying terrible things about Leah Remini and Holly Robinson Pete and Sarah Gilbert, talking about her sexuality, and also Miss Chen, the co-host, Julie Chen. So she has a history of making racist, insensitive, homophobic comments. So, if the apple, say, what did it say?
If the apple doesn't fall that far from the tree.
Far from the tree, and then one spoiled apple ruins the whole bunch. The birds of a feather flock together. Whatever cliche you want to use, that applies. So, she just got exposed for what it was, but she got paid for it. She got $10 million to leave the show. Now she's back on social media doing what she does, and and it's on to the next one.
So let's go into that because you talk about that
Yes.
a proximity to certain situations, weaponizing white tears. And I
Yes.
know what that means, but can you explain what that means?
Yes, if we are having, for example, if I'm having an uncomfortable conversation, and for example, a white woman would touch my hair without my
Mhm.
permission, and I say, "Don't touch my hair," and it's happened before,
Mhm.
and that white woman just gets so aggrieved and like she felt like she was the one that was wrong, even though my space was violated. So
Mhm.
that's one example. Another example is a microaggression that another one I experienced was. Um, oh, you did something different to your hair today. Is this your real hair or is it fake?
Mhm.
Or, how come you're always dressed up and I'm not? And, you always dressed up like you're going somewhere. Well, I am a Black woman in a majority white space. I can't present myself the same way you can. And you're aware of this privilege, but yet you want to just beat me back with it just to get a reaction out of me. That's another form, but that's what we deal with in this society. White women weaponize their tears, and Sharon Osbourne did it for all the world to see. And the majority of the viewers and people who've commented called her out on it. And I think that's what she's most upset about. And times are changing. We're not going to allow this to happen. Racist and homophobic comments should be taken to task for those things and be held responsible, especially when you have a platform to influence millions of people all over the world.
Mhm. Absolutely, I agree with you. And Shanae, I understand about the hair because, I don't, and I know what the obsession is. I just don't get it because, we as Black women with hair don't, and I'm not criticizing anyone who has short hair or, whatever.
Hmm.
But when you have long natural hair and it's yours,
Yes.
people feel this need to come and touch it. And I'm the same. I'm like, don't touch me. That's an intimate part of me. That's
Yes.
how I look at. I'm like only my husband and my hairdresser. And when I get my hair done, my son, because I have two boys, they like, mommy, can we touch your hair?
Yes.
That's the only time. And you know, from the comments about, oh, why do you dress a certain way,
Yes.
or why is your hair a certain way, or what I've have experienced, which I'm sure you've experienced too, you're not like the Black people that I know, or oh,
Correct.
you speak so well.
Yes.
Why why did your family decide to, you know, ski or scuba dive or, go to Europe or, what, or go to Japan and, study history, whatever it is that you've done that white people, majority society decide, and this is the narrative where they say, this seems like something odd, as if African Americans, Black Americans don't do these things.
Correct.
And all those things that I mentioned, I know Black people that do. I know Black people who avidly ski. And,
Correct.
there would be people like, Black people don't ski. I'm like, yes, they do. They do lots of things
Correct.
that you don't know about. But
We
what's
speak multiple languages.
absolutely multiple languages, work in government, work in very high levels in foreign service and different things, and have gone to Ivy League or not. Um, it is fascinating the what majority society will try to limit you,
Mhm.
and it brings me back to that question of why is it that Black women always have to explain? And we can just use the hair because if I have my hair down or my hair is because when it's curly,
Yes.
people get excited. They're like, "Oh, I love your hair," and they'll
Yes.
touch it, and I move back like, no, because
I've
to
actually
me,
had, I was going to tell you, I have actually had a white woman come and pull my hair. I have my hair in a big old puff, and actually pull me and yank my head back.
wow,
And I was working for a local politician in Detroit, in the area. And when that happened, I could not react the way I wanted to
I'm sure.
because I was at work. So I'm representing that elected official. So I couldn't do that. But those kind of things. It's like every day, and then you're expected to explain and to be a mammy for them. I
Mhm.
am not your mammy, you know. And I think that's what she wanted from Cheryl Underwood, to be that mammy for her, to
Mhm.
say, explain to me, hug me, hold me, make me feel better, even though I am the aggressor, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Fall back of those stereotypes. That's a natural thing she did.
So for our audience, because I'm sure there's going to be somebody who's saying, "Mammy, what's that? What is a mammy,
Yes.
Janae?"
A mammy is a stereotypical role for a black woman in film. The person who, from Gone with the Wind, for
Mhm.
example, the mammy, who the black heavyset mothering figure that took care of Scarlett O'Hara, and
Mhm. Mhm.
Massa Mrs. that kind of thing. And there's an expectation here, in especially in America, that that continues. Even in the UK, you have a lot of people who are white, who
Mhm.
have people who are like myself, from the Caribbean. They come out there and they've taken care of children and been nannies for them, so they have that expectation of that's what black women should do, should
Mhm.
be that comforter and that understander, even though you're the aggressor. So that transcends borders and boundaries, that stereotype that we have to coddle and placate, and not hold white women accountable, but just to make them feel better about who they are, even though they've hurt us.
So that begs the question, Shanae, and you just said it. So how do we hold white women accountable when they do these types of actions? Because oftentimes and I've heard this and I've had this accusation lodged at myself. Everything is always about race with you people. It's always about race. I don't see color. What do you say to people who say that?
Well, if you don't see color, then you must be blind.
Mm,
So I see who you are, and I see who you are as an individual, as a person. But I'm also aware enough to know that everything in this country is about race. And when white people fall back on that, that's because they don't want to be held accountable for their role of holding up white supremacy. They may not do it in the obvious way of saying the n-word, 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 or putting out crosses out there. But if you live every day in America, and you know that you won't be judged by the color of your skin, you won't be followed around in stores, you won't be choked to death by a cop, you won't be shot to death by a cop because of the color of your skin, because of a routine traffic stop gone bad. So
mhm,
they understand this. People know that, but the people are uncomfortable about getting out of their comfort zones. So it's up to that person, that individual, to go to read anti-racism books, go to anti-racism trainings, become an ally to people of color, learn about American history, learn about the history of policing in America and where that comes from. That's from the slave patrols. People, they don't understand that and know that. They hired people who, plantation owners hired people, poor whites, to do policing for them, policing of the slaves, and to capture them. That's where the formation of the policing in America began, especially specifically in the South. So that's all you can do, is have and tell people to go educate yourself, go learn,
mhm.
surround yourself with other white people who are allies, who are anti-racist. There are so many that are famous, that are not so famous, that can teach and explain to you what happens when you have privilege, and why you don't understand why touching somebody and violating their space is wrong, and it's what it's rooted in control, and rooted in disrespect, and it's rooted in a country that didn't see us as human beings. And even in the UK, you didn't see them as human beings. You didn't see people in the Caribbean as human beings, and in South America as human beings, because of the color of their skin.
Mhm. Excellent, excellent. And I was going to go back to that and talk about the whole reason that people do touch your hair. It goes back to slavery. It goes back to the auction block, where you could physically examine someone and put your hands on someone because they weren't human. They were considered property. And for so many people who still like to perpetuate that narrative, that is a belief that they have. And so they feel that there is an ownership to you, that they can touch you at any point and that you have no right to be offended or outraged that someone would touch you. I want to go back to something that you just said. You said ally. Define for me what is an ally, because there are a lot of people throwing that term around, and I don't know if everybody understands truly what an ally means.
An ally is Jim Brown. Uh, an ally is Heather Heyer. An ally is someone who's willing to put their life on the line for equality and equity in America. An ally is a person that's willing not just to say Black Lives Matter, but willing to put their body on the line and their privilege on the line to ensure that people are treated fairly and equally in this country. An ally is someone who listens and who not just is a part of the movement, but not trying to take over a movement.
Mm-hmm.
An ally is someone who donates to Black-led and Black-focused organizations without expectations that they're going to get a thanks in return. An ally contacts their congressman or congresswoman and their senator and tells them to pass H.R. 1, the For the People Act, and the John Lewis Voting Act. That's what an ally can do. And an ally will call out other white racists to tell them this is wrong and here's why. And will tell that racist to go F off or go do something with themselves. Or, so those are the prime examples of what allyship is with white America and what white people can do to help us become more equitable and equal in this country.
Excellent, excellent. So one of the last things that I want to talk about before our time is up. So the Derek Chauvin murder trial is on, and we know that that is the police officer who murdered George Floyd. And I'm just going to say it, he murdered him. I have watched a couple of days of the trial. It is difficult. I know everyone can't watch it, and I understand that. And it is traumatizing watching it. You mentioned not or being a person who does not have to endure being choked to death by the police, or being shot by the police, or having a traffic stop, or whatever encounter with the police go wrong. A lot of what we're talking about is a lot of what is being discussed in this trial. And it's interesting because here we are in America in 2021, and George Floyd is on trial because he took opioids. And the conversation is, well, he took opioids. He overdosed earlier in March. Here we are in May. He had got off the pills allegedly. Now he's back on allegedly. If even if the police hadn't come up to him, something was going to happen. They're pushing that narrative. There was a lieutenant sergeant who was on the stand today, and he talked about that particular move that was the neck on, or the knee on the neck. He said, in his own words, and I'm paraphrasing, that move is used to gain control of an individual. Once they are handcuffed and subdued, you are supposed to release them. What we see on the video is that additional minutes tick by. What is also incredibly concerning is the concern that was given to the EMTs in terms of the call, when the call was made, how the call was phrased. Because at first it was said there was no need for lights and sirens. It was just a regular call, just drive normally. Then it was, we need lights and sirens. Then it was, you need the fire department to come because they need to help resuscitate them, because no one realized that this person had no pulse. I say all that to say, Shanay, you talked a little bit about, before we got on, Rodney King. Can you just share with me some of the things that you see in parallels between the two trials, and what most concerns you as a Black American in 2021, watching this, who is a mother?
Yes, as a mom, listening to Mr. Williams and Mr. McMillan, the seasoned saint, a cry about not having his mom last June, and then witnessing before that, witnessing what happened to Mr. Floyd, and Mr. Williams, the young man who is a martial artist, and how how the defense attorneys tried to paint him as an angry Black man. And now they're putting Mr. Floyd on trial. It's reminiscent of the Rodney King trial in 1991, 1992, that era. with the cops and how they beat him and they put him on trial, even though he was beaten basically into a coma. And they the victim was re-victimized again. Unfortunately, Mr. Floyd is not here with us. Mr. King was with us for a little while longer until he passed away in the early 2000s. But this is what it looks like. It's a copy and paste of that trial. And the defense attorneys know that the only thing they can fall back on is using racial stereotypes. Even with the EMT, who the white woman EMT, that was like, and the judge, the back and forth was like a demonstration of a white male patriarchy. You know, she's an expert in her field. She knew what was going on, and the judge basically just like poo-pooed her and tried to basically put her in her place in front of the jury. So I'm just seeing the same thing. It's like there's nothing they can do except fall back on racial tropes and stereotypes just to make the case. But you know, that's what his attorney's going to do, because they know that placating to old racist tropes and stereotypes, as you've seen in the past, can lead to a not guilty verdict for a police officer, regardless of what the visual evidence says. We know that he was on Mr. Chauvin was on Mr. Floyd's neck for 9 minutes, and he adjusted himself to put more pressure on him. But Mr. Chauvin also knew the power of the people that were behind him. He had incidents of allegations of police brutality before and wasn't penalized for it. So he did it again. You have a God complex. If you're doing something repeatedly and you're not punished for it, you're going to keep doing it. So he took it to the next level. And unfortunately, Mr. Floyd passed away. I don't care if he had crack, if he had, and he called himself Jesus Christ. You're not supposed to do that to a human being. Mr. Chauvin escalated the situation, knowing that what possible outcomes may arise because of his behavior. So, you know, are we going back to criminalizing Black people for having drugs, for having opioids, when we know that there is an opioid crisis all over the country? And the population that is really most impacted are white people in rural and so in the suburban areas. I mean, what are we doing? I can say this. I understand what the defense is doing, and I understand that they have to present the best case for Mr. Chauvin, but at the same time, relying on racial tropes to get a not guilty verdict is it's poisonous, and I worry that it might be successful once again.
And I wholeheartedly agree with you. When I saw the second day of testimony and I could see where the defense was going, I thought, oh, are we really going to do this again? And you know, one of the analysts on court TV was talking about how incredible it is that we actually have footage from the time that George Floyd is in the store, standing there just having general conversations, doing what every normal person would do whenever you go into a store, whatever it is that you're doing, and then going back to their car and then having this encounter. So many different vantage points, so many different angles. And I'm reminded of, you know, everything that happened last summer where people started saying we need to defund the police and all these different conversations. And I agree to a certain extent that yes, we do need to defund the police of militarization in terms of military style weapons and different things that are used on the community, because I do believe that our communities are over policed. When I saw the encounter when they initially walked up and the guy that was on the passenger side, his demeanor was, okay, this is normal. Let me just get in line and do what I'm supposed to do so I can survive this. And I don't think that the majority of America really understands what it's like to be a person of color. No matter how many degrees you have, no matter if you're wearing a suit, no matter if you are driving an expensive vehicle. Really quick story. A friend of mine who I know very well, who is working on his PhD, if he doesn't already have it, he drives Mercedes. He is a national speaker. Matter of fact, he speaks all around the world. Drives a Mercedes. He happens to be a very tall African American gentleman with locks. He said that he was in his wealthy neighborhood, where of course he's not the majority, he's the minority. However, it's his neighborhood. He legitimately lives there, was dropping a friend off at his house. The police were behind him. He didn't realize it because why should he? He's legitimate. He has his license. He has everything. Lights come on as he turns the corner and they pull him over and they said, this vehicle doesn't belong to you. And he says, what are you talking about? This is my vehicle. I bought it. I know that this is my vehicle. Well, what happened was the police officer reversed one of the digits in the license and came up with another license and then sort of joked about it. Oh, my bad. You know, I reversed the digit, you know, you got to give me. And he's like, well, why did you pull me over anyway? My tags are, you know, up to date, up to code, however you want to say it, on my vehicle. There's nothing out of place. There's no broken tail light. I wasn't speeding. I wasn't driving. Why did you pull me over? And at the end of the day, the only answer that can be given is because you are a Black man with locks, dark skin, driving a Mercedes, and I needed to make sure you were who you were.
Not just that, it's probably because he makes more money than him.
Absolutely.
And that's a way of reminding your friend of his social status in America.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so these are things that Black Americans face every day, from encounters between police, and we've seen it on video where we have young people. I have 2 young sons and they are both very tall, and I am always fearful. And I'm extremely hawkish with them whenever we're out because they can't, because I'm just like, no, because I don't want to risk a Tamir Rice because he was almost 6 feet tall.
12 years old. At
12 years old. I am 5'8", Shanay. My son is looking me in the eye, which is a wonderful thing. And he's 12 and he's goofy and he still balls up in my lap like mommy. But if someone sees him, they think that he's older. And my fear is that a police officer will be threatened because he sees him, you know, because the narrative has always been, if you are a large man, or what we think is a large man, because when the Tamir Rice police call came out, they were saying he's 25 to 35, and he was a 12-year-old child who they shot and killed for no reason. And you know, as we talk about these microaggressions between police, between our hair, between our clothes, even working in an office, and how you comport yourself in terms of how you present your work, people are looking at you. And I want to go back to something that you said, because you talked about the woman that was in your office who said, well, why are you always dressing up as if you're going somewhere and I don't? Why do you think that the majority society sometimes has to make that comparison?
I think it's just another reminder that I'm supposed to be below that person. You know, that's just that's all it is. It's her insecurity and her whiteness and feeling threatened by me. And I just didn't, at first I let it get to me, and then I thought about it. I was like, you know what, whatever, you do what you do. But that's just because of the social racial hierarchy, and people, regardless of say that I'm not racist, I love everybody, but at the same time, then you'll come out your mouth slick like that, you know. So what it is just people, there are white people that will passive aggressively remind you of what they think of where you should be in the racial hierarchy. That's all that is, and that's just because they're afraid of competition, and they're afraid of change, and they're afraid of different ideas and different perspectives that counter the false narrative that they've been programmed to believe. That's it.
And you know what? That is a perfect way to end our show, Shanay. Thank you so much for coming on the Kim B. Davis Show. Tell us where we can find you.
Oh, you can find me on Twitter, Love Femme Negrita. I'm always on Twitter. When I'm not at work, so.
Fighting the good fight, constantly trying to make sure that you are fighting for those that don't have a voice. Shanay, thank you so much for being on the Kim B. Davis Show and breaking all of this down for us. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Kim, for having me. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning into the Kim B. Davis Show. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and TikTok. Bachelor is spelled BATCHELOR. You can see the show on youtube.com/Kimberly Bachelor Davis. You can also find me on Apple, Stitcher, Google, and Pocket Cast. You can also find out more information at kimbdavis.com. And as always, remember, be magnificent.
Having me.
Thank you.